Hi guys and welcome back, I'm Adam Thomas. Thank you all so much for being here. I know it's been a while since I last did a YouTube video, but I have some interesting little secret projects on the back burner, which I'm super excited to share with you guys. We are now fully back at work in the studio, so I'm being furiously tattooing. Today, to kick it all off, we are gonna do a PROCREATE tutorial. A lot of you in the comments have been asking for some more tutorials, so today we're gonna look at how to design for the top of a hand. It's gonna be fairly quick, fairly simple. I'm gonna skim over a few little bits that I've done in previous videos, but I'll let you know what videos they are in the links below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to click the like button, smash the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed to the channel. And with all that being said, let's jump into designing a tattoo for the top of a hand. So the first thing that you're going to want to do, open up PROCREATE. As we all know, this is the first thing you get to see when you open up PROCREATE. So this is where you have all your designs and everything else like that, all your saved projects. Grab your Apple Pencil. We're gonna click the plus icon in the top right-hand corner. We've got some options. We're gonna click A4. As you all know, or if you don't know, I always design using A4. For me, that is just because most body parts end up being A4. So it gives you a real easy way to figure out size and scale and how you can sort of get your design to be pretty much bang on size-wise without too much faffing around with the images. So, as I said, we're gonna design for the top of the hand. Normally what I do if I had a client here, I'd go out, I'd take a photo with the iPad, use their body part to design directly onto so I can make sure that it's gonna fit as close to perfectly once I get the stencil stuck onto them. For this, I then obviously just take the photo, but obviously I don't have a client here. So we're not having a client here. What I was thinking of doing was obviously taking a photo of my hands, but I've already got both of my hands tattooed. So I have my pound of flesh. So if you've never used a pound of flesh before, these things are amazing. As opposed to tattooing on flat practice skin, these give you the added extra annoyance, which all of us tattoo artists have to deal with, which is like the round, different, weird and wonderful shapes that arms tend to be. So I've tattooed these a few times, quite a few years ago with a few portraits, so it's well overdue for having another session on it. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna treat this like I would a client. I'm gonna stick this on the just on the table like this. So normally I'd have them just on my armrest and I'd get them just to have the hand in a nice relaxed position. So with the iPad, we're gonna click in the top left-hand corner, click the little spanner icon, click add, and then we're just gonna click take a photo. That's gonna open up your camera app. I'm gonna want the hand sort of to frame quite nicely in the middle of the image. We wanna just get the best sort of angle, just so we're getting the most out of that image so that we can get the design done properly. Once you're happy with that, click use photo, and that's gonna drop that straight into PROCREATE. So now we're done with the pound of flesh. The plan is, after I've designed this, we're gonna do a how to make a stencil video, and I'll go through the whole process of that. Then we'll stick it onto this, and I will tattoo whatever we design today onto this arm. So now that we've got the body part that we're gonna be tattooing into PROCREATE, we're gonna click in the top right-hand corner and click the Layers tab. You can see now that we've got this layer 1 selected. What we're gonna wanna do is further down the line, we're gonna do a few little different bits and bobs with blending modes. So at this point, what we wanna do is just take away a little bit of the skin tone out of this image. So with that layer selected, I'm gonna go over to the top left-hand corner, click the little magic wand icon, go to hue, saturation, and brightness, click layer. That's gonna allow us to change that whole layer's saturation. I'm just gonna drop that down to sort of 35%. Nothing too wild, we still want it to look like skin tone, we just don't want to be as sort of pink and as orange, which will make sense further down into this process. In the top right hand corner, I'm going to click the layers tab again. We've got this layer selected, we just want a duplicate copy of this, so we're going to slide the layer to the left, click duplicate, that's going to drop us a new layer on top, and this is going to become like our mask layer. So while we still got the layers tab open, we're just going to click the tick icon on the layer that we haven't got selected, so the bottom layer. That's going to hide that layer from view. It's not going to change anything on Procreate, or it's not going to visually look like it's changing anything because we've got the two layers stacked and we're just hiding that bottom layer. With the top layer selected, we're going to click the eraser tool, go down and make sure we've got soft airbrush selected. On the left hand side, we're going to change the brush size to about 80–85%, and then make sure the opacity is on 100%. And then we're just going to go and erase all of the areas of the hand that we're looking at getting the design put onto. So I'm going to go right to the edge. You don't have to be neat, you don't have to be tidy, but basically, if you've seen my how to design a tattoo template, I think that's what it was called. I'll put a link above. Make sure to click that, check that out. We're basically doing the same thing here, just with an actual image as opposed to drawing the body part out within Procreate. On the top right hand corner, once you're happy with the amount you've erased, click the layers tab, click the tick. That's going to put that bottom layer back into view, and now you can see how it sort of filled that gap. So now we've basically made like a sandwich where we can drop all of our designs underneath there, but you'll be able to see through that hole that we've just cut out with the eraser, and that way it's going to give us a natural cropping and allow us to really figure out the size and the composition on this client, pound of flesh. So whilst we've still got the layers tab open, make sure we've got the layer 1 selected, and now we're going to start dropping in design. So the reason why we want to have that layer, that bottom layer selected, is because when you import new images, they tend to drop on top of whatever layer you've got selected. So we want all these to sit in between the two. So it's just going to save us a little tiny job of having to rejig and reorganize the layers. The top left hand corner, we're going to click the spanner icon. We're going to go down to add and then insert photo. Now I've got roses already here, so I'm just going to grab the first one I can find, just for the sake of this tutorial. So at the moment this is pink, so the first thing we are going to want to do is just change that to black and grey. So it's really simple, and I'm sure we all know how to do this by now. Click the magic wand icon in the top left hand corner, hue, saturation and brightness, layer, and we're just going to drop that saturation all the way down. Now because this was obviously a pink rose, the contrast isn't quite as punchy as what I'd like it to be. So we're just going to drop the curves a little bit, just readjust the balance of the dark, medium tones and highlights. So the way we're going to do that is, again, go to the top left hand corner, click the magic wand icon and go down to curves and then layers. That's going to allow us to adjust the whole layer of that rose. So I'm not going to go too wild with the curves. I'm going to keep it real nice and simple. We're just going to drop a little marker in the middle, and we're just going to pull that down just until the shadows are at a point where we've got some nice black points. We've got some nice punchy medium tones with the shadows, and we've got those nice sharp highlights on the top. Once you're happy with those curves, in the top right hand corner, click the layers tab. We're going to make sure we've got the rose layer selected. Top left hand corner, click the arrow icon. That's going to bring us up all the hangers on the outside of the rose, so we can adjust the size and the composition and where that's going to sit. So we're just going to drag this out and just get it to a point where we're just starting to fill the hand, and grabbing the little green hanger at the top, we can just twist that round just so we can get that top petal just to sit nicely, and we're just looking for it to sit and to fill the top of the hand, but then also making sure that it's working with any existing tattoo, so the portrait above, plus making sure that it's following natural contours and lines in the hand, so it looks as natural as possible. So I want it to fill the hand, but I don't want to go too wild with overlap and running over the side. So once we start getting close to these pads, what you're going to find, especially on hands, is all of these areas that tend to drop out. So by all means you can tattoo it. It's going to feel exciting, to say the least, for your client. It's not the most comfortable of places to get tattooed, and like I say, once you get through the healing process, a lot of this is going to drop out. So it's sort of worth your while to think more about trying to keep it on top of the hand and trying to stay away from these pads, just to stop you from getting too many headaches with touch-ups and trying to refigure stuff out. By all means, drop onto these sections, but just keep it really simple. No crazy detail and stuff like that. Same with the knuckles, because the knuckles naturally, you're going to be in and out of your pockets, you're going to be knocking and rubbing. They will drop out. So again, to keep things really simple, sort of really flat dark tone. So as and when it does drop out, it's going to look a lot more natural, as opposed to if you get some real fine details in there and they start dropping out, it's just going to look a mess, and over time just not look the best. So now we're at this point, we are pretty much happy, or I am pretty much happy with where this is going to sit. You can see how we've got this background that we didn't cut out at the start, where it's just dropping down over the knuckles. We're just going to take that back, get rid of that. Nothing too crazy neat. We're not trying to carve it out perfectly. We just want to get rid of that background from that area, so that when we start dropping in any extra little elements like leaves and any other little design flares, then we've got that space available. So the way we're going to do that, in the top right hand corner, we're going to click the layers icon, make sure we've got the rose selected. Click the eraser tool, make sure on soft airbrush. On the left hand side, we are going to just drop that size down to sort of 50%, and then we're just going to very quickly just erase this out. Like I say, I'm not trying to be super accurate here. We're probably going to end up adding some extra background back into this, but I just want to take away that harshness that's already there so that we can drop some extra layers underneath. So at this point, I want to add a few little leaves, a few little extra design elements in there just to make it look a little bit more interesting. So what we're going to do is click the little spanner icon in the top left hand corner, make sure we're on add, and we're going to go insert photo. I should have some leaves available to me here, which are leaves that I use quite a lot. If you don't have leaves already in your photo album, just copy and paste from Google, or if you've got any saved, use this process. But getting images into Procreate is fairly straightforward. Like I say, either copy and paste or add an image from your camera roll. Now, because we can't see these images, because they're sandwiched underneath that top layer, we're just going to hide the masking layer that we've got at the moment from the top, just so we can see what we're doing with these leaves. So clicking the layer icon, that's going to give us all our layers. The top layer, which is that mask, we're just going to click the little tick. It's going to hide that, and as you can see straight away, allows us to see all of the layers underneath, which is the leaves that we want. So we just want to isolate these two leaves on the left hand side. If what you've got is exactly what you need, then yeah, you don't need to follow this step, but this is just going to show you how to select a certain section of an image that you want to use. So top left hand corner, we're going to click the S, which is selection tool. Make sure we're on freehand. We're going to draw a little marquee around these bottom two leaves. Top left hand corner, spanner icon. We're going to click cut. I'm just going to cut that out of that layer. Click paste. That's going to paste it into a brand new layer of its own. Click the layer icon in the top left hand corner. We're going to go down to where we've got those excess leaves that we don't want. I'm going to swap that to the left and just click delete. So now we're left with those two leaves isolated, and that's all we want. At the moment, obviously they're green, and we're dealing with a black and gray image. So I'm just going to go into the top left hand corner, click the magic wand, go down to hue, saturation and brightness, layer, drop that down. Now we're not going to adjust the curves, because as they stand, that's pretty much where we want them to be tonally. Top right hand corner, we're going to go back and click the layers icon and click the tick just to put that masking layer back on. Whilst we've still got the layers available, you can see now that we've got the mask layer, the leaves, the rose. We want those leaves to be underneath the rose. So I'm going to click and hold the leaves, drag them down, and that's going to drop them underneath that rose layer. The top left hand corner, we're going to click the arrow tool. That's going to allow us to move these leaves around and resize. So we'll just spin that around using the green little hanger, and then we'll just resize just using the blue ones until we're at a point where we're fairly happy where that sits. So I think I want these leaves just to fall just down the fingers. I think it's going to give it a real nice sort of look. It's going to be a little bit different, and it's just going to make it look a little bit bigger and not just cut off at the knuckles. Normally, for me, with leaves, I tend to draw and add on extra little leaf elements as I'm tattooing, just so I can get them to sit and fit exactly where it looks natural. But mainly the leaves on my compositions, as in PROCREATE, and they're just to indicate to my client what I'm thinking of doing with regards to composition and placement, so we're both on the same sort of wavelength when it comes to the tattoo. Now, as it stands with these leaves, it's sort of making it look a little bit big with the rose, so I'm probably going to want to resize the whole thing, as in the rose and the leaves together. So we're going to click in the top right hand corner, click the layers tab. At the moment we've got the leaves selected, but we want to select that and the rose. So what we're going to do is swipe to the right on the layer above, and you can see now that the rose layer is also blue, as well as the leaves. That's going to allow us to manipulate both layers at the same time. At the top left hand corner, click the arrow icon. That's going to bring up the boundary box around the outside, which means now we can resize and move around both layers at the same time. So we're just going to make that a fraction smaller, and straight away you can see how that sort of sits on the hand a little bit nicer with those leaves. So we've got a few little bits of the background on the rose layer still peeping out. So we're going to go back onto layers tab, select the rose layer on its own, so not with the leaves, click the eraser tool, and we'll just take away those last few little bits of background that are just peeping out. Like I said, I don't want to go too wild. We're taking away too much of the background. I just want to just neaten it up a little bit and make it look a little bit more pleasing to the eye. So at this point, I just want to add in a few extra background elements back into it, but where I want them, not just where the image was. So we're going to click on the layers tab. We're going to click the plus icon. That's going to drop us a new layer. We're just going to click and hold and just drag that underneath the rose and the leaves. So we want the background to sit obviously underneath both of those elements. Click the brush tool, go down to soft airbrush. On the top right hand corner, change the color to black. On the left hand side, we're going to want to be 100%, but opacity around 50%. That's just going to allow us to sort of add and build up little bits of background in certain little areas exactly where we want. So I'm just going to click in and just start building this up around the leaves, just onto the fingers over the knuckles, and just soften that into the existing stuff. Again, this is all going to be a little bit of a pinch of salt, because once we get it onto the actual body part, and so onto your client, or as we are going to do at some point onto the pound of flesh, you are going to be changing and pushing and pulling the background anyway, just to get it to fit exactly where it needs to be and what looks visually appealing on the day. So the last thing we're going to add to this design, we're just going to add a few little lens flares. If you've ever seen and in my previous videos, you'll see that I tend to add lens flares to a lot of things. They add a little bit of extra dynamic and design sort of flair to the piece. If you've not seen anything on any of the videos, make sure to check out my Instagram. You'll see them on pretty much every single tattoo. So the way we're going to do that, we're going to do a real quick sort of run through of the tutorial of how to do the lens flares. So they're super simple. We're going to just click the layers tab in the top right hand corner, click on the rose layer, and then click the plus icon. That's going to drop us a layer above the rose. Click the brush tool. We're going to change this now to medium hard airbrush. Change the color from black to white. On the size, we're going to make sure on 100%. On opacity, we're going to be 100% too. And then we're just going to click straight in the middle of the piece. So obviously at the moment, you've just got a big white circle in the middle of the rose. We need that to look a bit more like a lens flare. So we're going to go over to the top right hand corner to the layers tab. Select that on layer 6, which is the big white circle. Click the N, and we're just going to drop that down to around 50%. While we've still got the layer selected, we're just going to swipe that to the left. It's going to bring us up a few options. We're going to click duplicate. That's going to give us a second copy of that circle. On the top left-hand corner, we're going to click the arrow icon, and we're just going to drag that so we've got a slight little bit of overlap in the middle, and then that's pretty much our lens flares done. Just to make it a little bit easier for us to manipulate them, we're going to click the layers tab in the top right-hand corner. With the top lens flare layer, so the top circle, we're just going to tap that. That's going to bring us up some options on the left-hand side. Click merge down. That's going to merge that layer with the one directly underneath, which now you can see that we've now got those lens flares together as one layer. So we can now resize them, reposition them together as one. We can also change the opacity if we need to make them any lighter. So in the top left-hand corner, we're going to click the arrow icon. That's going to give us the option to move these around. We're just going to push and pull these, see where it's going to sit best. Ideally for me, I'm looking for any darker places, which is going to allow me to lighten them up a little bit with those lens flares, but also it's going to allow me to carve those shapes and get them real nice and sharp and punchy. So I'm probably going to be looking at getting one down in this bottom left-hand corner. We're just going to click the layers tab, click the N. We're just going to drop that opacity down just a fraction more, so it's a little bit more subtle, so around 64%. We're going to swipe that layer to the left. Again, it's going to give us the options to make a copy of that, so we're going to click duplicate. It's going to give us another version of those lens flares. Top left-hand corner, we're going to click the arrow icon, and then we're just going to move a couple of those just above and just shrink them down a little bit, just so we've got a few little elements dotted here and there. So at this point, obviously we've got a completely opaque image sat on top of the hand. It's very flat, very lifeless, doesn't really give you a good indication of what that's going to look like once it's on the arm. So the way we're going to make that look a little bit better and make your client be able to read it a little bit easier is we're just going to change the blending mode. So the way we're going to do that is at the top right hand corner, click the layers icon. We're going to group all of our design elements together. So starting with the top lens flare, we're just going to swipe down the list, turning them all blue and just ignoring the top mask layer, so the image of the hand, and then the bottom layer that's sat underneath that. You see a couple of options pop up now in the top right hand corner. We're going to click group. That's going to drop them all into a group and then just combine them all together, so it's very easy for us to manipulate any of the individual layers. So everything is still layers within that group, so the lens flares, the leaves, so we can still move and push and pull stuff if that needs to be, if any little adjustments need to be made for either your sake or your client's sake. We're going to swipe this to the left, click duplicate. That's going to give us a carbon copy of that group. We're going to hide the top group, which is now going to be our master. So within there, like I say, we can still make any adjustments we want to the design. The bottom one is the one that we're going to sort of present to the client. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to tap on that group, and it's going to give us a few options on the left-hand side. So what we're looking for is flatten. So what that's going to do is basically merge all of those layers within that group into one individual layer. So with that layer, we'll now be able to change all the blending modes and the opacity, which is going to make it sit on the hand a lot easier. So with that layer selected, click the N, and you can see now that we've got a few options. So we've got opacity at the top, and then we've got all of the blending modes. So if you start going through these, you can see how it's changing the look of it on the hand. So what that's doing is just how PROCREATE is dealing with how it blends with the layer underneath. Multiply is the one that I use a lot. It's in fact the only one I use. So what that's going to do is take all the darker elements from your design layer, and then it's going to use all of the information that's on the photo that's underneath, and it's just going to merge those two. So it's going to be very similar to just dropping the opacity, but it's going to work a little bit better with the shadows and the highlights that are on those images, almost blend them together a little bit. So you'll be able to see all of the little creases and like imperfections in the skin coming through. It's going to make it look a little bit more natural than that flat image just sat on top. So I'm also going to just drop the opacity very, very slightly down to sort of 80, 85%. So we've still got the harsh shadows, but we'll be able to see a little bit more of the skin tone. So if we just deselect that layer, we can now see how that's going to sit on the hand and how it's looking a bit more natural. So this is why we dropped the saturation earlier on in the video of the images, just so it's not so orange that it's going to be making that rose look very strange. So at this point, this is when I then show my client, make sure they're happy with what I've got in my head for the composition, the size and the placement. It allows them, if they want to, make any changes, any adjustments. So there you go, guys. That was how to do a hand tattoo design from start to finish. So moving forward from this, I'm going to show you exactly how I then go from this to doing the stencil. And then subsequently from that, I'm going to show you how to do the stencil to get it onto your client, or in my case, my pound of flesh. And then I am going to show you exactly how I'd go from that to the completed tattoo. So I will show you exactly how I go about tattooing, and I'll talk you through the whole process. So hopefully if you enjoyed this, hopefully you found something interesting. If you have, make sure to smash the like button. Click subscribe if you're not already subscribed to the channel. And with all that being said, I will see you guys on the next video. Peace.